Hey guys, what's up? 2-Bit Jesus here, and welcome to the 8th anniversary of the 2-Bit channel. And you know, when it's anniversary time, we gotta look at a beat-em-up title, and I got a very special one for this year. It is the final fight game in the Final Fight series. That's a lot of finals and a lot of fights. And what game is that, you ask? Well, we are going to the PlayStation 2 to play Final Fight Streetwise. Let's jump right in. Final Fight Streetwise is a beat-em-up developed by Capcom Studio 8 and published by Capcom. It was released in early 2006 at the twilight of the PS2 and original Xbox lifespan. Studio 8 handled the PS2 version while Secret Level ported Streetwise to the original Xbox. Now today I'm going to be looking at the PS2 version, but I have heard that the Xbox version was ported rather poorly and has a lot of issues that are not existent in the PS2 version. So I can already right off the bat, before the end of this review, recommend if you're looking at getting this game, look at the PS2 version. The original Xbox version has some issues, particularly with its save system. When surfing the webs, I wasn't able to find a whole lot in tidbits on this game, but luckily I was able to glean a little bit of information from Matt McMuscle's series What Happened, which I highly recommend going and watching his videos. Those videos are awesome, funny, and very informative, and was the only information I was able to find on the tidbits of this game. During the development of this game, it had some significant troubles. They were working on a more colorful beat-em-up game, but Capcom had saw the success of GTA 3 and were really trying to shoot for that market. So unfortunately, Studio 8's really colorful, vibrant beat-em-up game had to change significantly. They had to make the game very gritty and gray and dirty. Overall, less cartoony, which, by the way, I think we can all agree is not this franchise's style. It is very cartoony, like the Street Fighter series. It's more anime-esque as opposed to realistic. I wonder what game we would have got had Capcom not been so heavy-handed with Streetwise, because Studio 8 had given us the Maximo series so they could show they could make a great game on their own. So, with these tidbits done, let's see for the final time if this truly is the final fight in this review. Spoiler alert, I think it is, because there hasn't been a Final Fight game since. Let's do this. Controls are solid and precise, and the combat is actually very fun, smooth, and solid as well. It's very satisfying to string together some combos on an enemy. Of course, in all beat-em-ups, there are weapons that you can pick up off the ground and beat down enemies. You got your bat, brass knuckles, etc., etc., and of course, to make the game more gritty, you have guns. Guns are rather cheap to use in this game. They make it easy to blow through enemies if you don't feel like fighting them head on. But the balance here is there is an ammo limit, and the guns are harder to come by than other weapons in the game. Unlike previous Final Fight games, there is no fixed camera. It is a full 3D camera. The game is slightly open world, gone is the day from going from point A to point B. You're dropped in big areas that you can traverse, do side missions in, beat up random thugs. There's a pawn shop you can go to if you want to buy your weapons. You can also go to a gym to learn more combos, and all this works together rather well. Of course, it costs money to learn new combos and of course to buy weapons, but you can get these things again by beating up thugs and also doing side missions for the denizens of Metro City. While side quests aren't a must, I do highly recommend doing quite a few of them, as they really help, again, increase your character's abilities, because as you get towards the late part of the game, it becomes more difficult. But, of course, if you've been doing all the side stuff in the game, you've acquired enough wealth, and skills to make it much more easier to overcome those late game challenges. It's also more rewarding and enriching as you get to see a lot of side characters and side stories that help expand the world of Streetwise. Also, there are some pretty cool cameos from the Capcom universe that you won't see unless you do these side quests. For example, the Fight Club missions are very fun, and you get to see Andor again from the Final Fight series, also Cammy from the Street Fighter series. The enemies you fight don't really stand out all that much. For the most part, you will be fighting thugs. The only difference between them is their weapon assortment and the design of their character models. They give a moderately difficult challenge. The difficulty in them is in their numbers. If there's a lot of them, you're going to have a tougher time. But honestly, even if you have a novice grasp on the combo system, you'll be able to handle a group of 4 easily. It only gets more difficult once you're starting to deal with 8 enemies on the screen. The boss battles are rather bland in my opinion at the beginning of the game, but once you get to the end game, shit escalates quickly, and there's some pretty big epic fights to be had. That goes for our basic enemies as well. They escalate fairly quickly towards the end of the game as well. They turn into these souped up, drugged up mutant monsters you have to fight, and it can get pretty intense. Level design is pretty decent. Like I said earlier, you're dropped into these big hub areas, and there's a lot of little areas you can visit within these levels, like alleyways, again, pawn shops, the gym, but also diners, a restaurant. And there's fun side missions to be had and fun mini games to play. Like this one, you're helping a restaurant owner with his rat infestation problem. This game also offers some pretty cool bonus content after you've beaten the main story of the game. You have a classic arcade mode, which allows you to play a lot of the characters from the main story mode. You got Cody, you got Kyle, Guy, Haggard, etc. And it functions as your classic co-op 2-player beat 'em up. It's a really awesome mode. You can also unlock the original Final Fight arcade game. Now that I've gone and talked fairly positively about this game, it's time to talk about the main issue that brings all of this down and makes it not so fun, and that's the camera. The camera is the main antagonist to Final Fight Streetwise. It will fight with you. It will put you in difficult positions. You will feel like you're fighting air a lot of times because of how the camera, when you're fighting a group of guys, and sometimes how the camera will shift and change, and it's just like the character you were looking at fighting is off screen now, and so you're just punching air. There's a lot of that. The camera is atrocious in this game, and you could tell that the development team made a solid game, solid combat system, and then they were forced to have this different camera system because, again, they set this game with a fixed camera on rails, and then they were forced to do this more open, full 3D camera, and it just doesn't jive, it doesn't mix with the rest of the game. Another struggle with this game is sometimes it doesn't really clearly say what you have to do, and again, I've said this in other reviews, I don't really like having my hand held, but I like at least being pointed in the right direction of what to do. There's certain parts of the game where they just kind of drop you in, don't give you any hints at all, and you kind of got to figure it out, and it can be a bit frustrating. I know that Capcom was wanting to make Studio 8 create a Grand Theft Auto killer with Final Fight Streetwise, but honestly, the gameplay here reminds me a lot of Yakuza. It's this semi-open world, small little area of a city, but they packed so much to do in these little areas. I had more fun playing all the side stuff in Final Fight Streetwise than playing the main story mode. Now, the main story mode was okay, it was serviceable, but the side stuff was way more fun to me, and I think that's the one big positive about Final Fight Streetwise. It's a proto-Yakuza game, but unfortunately that camera really keeps Final Fight Streetwise from breaking out and being, in my opinion, a really great game. I give gameplay 1.5 bits.
I'd buy that for $1.
Out of 4.
God damn it, Kyle!
The sound is a bit mixed here. Now, the sound effects are great. The punches, the kicks, the throws, all of that, it has a really great sound to it, very impactful. The voice acting is, it's so-so. While it's not terrible, it does kind of have that early to mid-aughts video game campiness in some parts to it, and flat deliveries. In particular, and this is more on the writing side, so this isn't the voice actor's fault, but it's just a lot of cussing for the sake of cussing, and I think you guys know me, I don't mind cussing, but how the script was written, it was like a 9-year-old who just discovered all the curse words in the world, and they're trying to work it into every single part of the script, and it's a bit much, in my opinion. Listening to the music here, you can definitely tell what era this game came out in, and that's not really a knock against Final Fight Streetwise, as I believe the previous titles in the series, and even Streets of Rage, they have a certain sound to them, and you could pinpoint the era they came out in. The issue I kind of have with it is, at least musically, Streetwise doesn't have a whole lot of continuity with the rest of the franchise. Examples being, if you listen to Streets of Rage 1 through 3, or even Final Fight 1 through 3, there's a continuity, there's a connection musically to all of these games. Streetwise just does not musically feel this way. It feels like it's more wanting to be connected to Grand Theft Auto 3, or even the music really reminds me a lot of True Crime Streets of LA. There's a bit of compression with the music and sound effects too, and even the voice acting in this game. Now, it's not too terrible, but it's noticeable in certain parts. I give sound 2 bits.
I'd buy that for $1.
Out of 4.
Who said we were done?
This game is visually a bit ugly compared to the rest of the series. Final Fight is supposed to be a bright, colorful game, and Streetwise is very, again, they're trying to be Grand Theft Auto. Everything is dark and grayed out, and it's just, if this was a different game, I wouldn't mind, but it's a universe and a cast of characters that I know fairly well, and it's a bit off-putting. Now, the graphics by their own merit are decent. The character models are rendered very well. The game is incredibly dark, but that's really more on my end. When I was capturing footage for this game, I was using the composite part of my cable. It's actually a component cable, but for some reason, I don't know why, guys, I was using the composite side of it. But don't worry, after I captured footage for this game and I moved on to another review to work on for PS2, I quickly started using the component, which is way better, but the game is still really dark. I know there are other options out there to really clear up and clean up these images, but honestly, the PS2 was the least future-proofed of the 6th gen games, so if you're going to play PS2, please get an old CRTV and it'll look phenomenal. Don't play it on a modern screen. Every now and then in this game, though, you will run into some bright, colorful characters from Capcom's past, and they shine through a little bit in this game. When you run into Guy, Hager, or even Cammy, while they're not bright and colorful from the other Capcom games they're in, they at least do shine through. They look really well. They look like their characters, and it's a little bright spot in this dark, grayish world. Our story stars Kyle, Cody from Final Fight 1's little brother. He's a street fighter on the mean streets of Metro City and is mentored by Cody, who apparently has gotten out of prison, because all he wears throughout this game is his prison orange shirt. Kyle has a girlfriend named Vanessa, and she owns a bar, and her brother works for the police force. After a successful fight, Kyle and Cody go to Vanessa's bar to celebrate, and that's where our story really begins. Cody gets mixed up with some questionable things in Metro City's underground world and goes missing, and Kyle has to find his brother. In this search for his brother, he runs into a lot of old familiar faces from the Final Fight franchise. Guy, Haggard, and even Vanessa play a critical role in helping Kyle find his brother. Really, the first half of our story, as I said earlier, is just Kyle doing some detective work and finding out what exactly is going on in the underworld of Metro City. He finds out his brother has been taking Glow, which is an enhancement drug, but also it turns you psychotic. It's pretty much super cocaine meth all wrapped up into one. Why is Cody taking it, you ask? Well, Cody apparently has some really bad knees and is just wanting to relive his glory days of Final Fight 1 as being one of the best fighters in Metro City. It's being made and distributed by a psychotic priest named Father Bella, who incidentally is the younger brother of Belger, the main villain from the first Final Fight. So we're coming full circle with this. Younger brother of Cody's fighting younger brother of Belger. Bella isn't doing this just on his own. He also has a psychotic scientist who is helping manufacture Glow. Father Bella, using Glow, is able to control some really powerful fighters that our anti-hero Kyle must fight, including his brother Cody. Other big bads in Father Bella's employ are, as you would guess, with Father Bella's gimmick, the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Remember those memorable boss fights I told you about that happened towards the end of the game? This is it. These guys are quite unique and also insane. Very memorable, very awesome part of the game. Might I also mention, very freaking hard. Father Bella, having hooked a lot of people in the city on Glow, is able to start a massive riot that Kyle and friends and the Metro City Police Force have to contend with. The game's climax takes place at the top of Father Bella's church. You have to fight Cody, and then when Cody's knocked down, you have to then beat on Father Bella. It is an epic boss battle. In the end, Cody comes to his senses and helps Kyle defeat Father Bella by throwing himself and Father Kyle off of the church. They land at the bottom and somehow are both still alive. Cody is knocked out, and then after some cheesy dialogue, Kyle shoots and kills Father Bella. Our story ends with Kyle and Cody in the hospital recovering, and Cody saying that his knees are feeling better and that he's proud of the fighter Kyle has become, with Vanessa coming into the room and also telling them to stop talking about fighting for at least 1 second. Also, Vanessa seems to be over her brother's death rather shortly. There's some foreshadowing here of a second game as the crazy doctor who helped Father Bella with Glow is shown to be alive and well and free from any involvement of Father Bella's crazy plan. So in summation, our presentation, visually anyway, honestly hasn't aged that well. It looks very dated, but it's not like the worst thing ever. And our story, while paint by the numbers, is okay. I do like how things went full circle with the younger brothers fighting each other when in the first game the older brothers fought each other. It has some nice little touches here and there. So presentation gets 2 bits.
I'd buy that for $1.
Out of 4.
Okay. You look like you've seen a ghost.
Huh? Oh, yeah, I'm fine. It's nothing.
Meanwhile, the massive cleanup effort continues throughout Metro City.
So, I never played Final Fight Streetwise when I was younger, so I went into this without any nostalgia goggles on, and I gotta say, this is a decent game, and a lot of cool ideas that would be fleshed out by other franchises and other developers. Now, by no means is it a perfect game. It's got its rough spots, and I do wish they would have, instead of being all gritty and dark, they would have went with more of the big, flashy colorfulness that the other titles in the series were known for, but instead they went with that dark, gritty feel. They didn't have to do that, but again, that's neither here nor there. What is here is interesting, and it's kind of what other games would go on to do. I really do feel touches of Yakuza and touches of Shenmue, if you will. The fact that you're in these little areas and you can do little side quests for other people and you can build up your character with moves and etc., etc. There's a lot of ideas that would be put in other titles, and you could have really taken the beat 'em up franchise and expanded it from here. And again, I hate to say it again, Yakuza kind of did that to some extent, and so I think remembering Final Fight Streetwise as this awful game is just, I think, short-sighted. I think this game has a lot to offer, and by no means is it perfect. So, my final verdict for Final Fight Streetwise on the PS2, not the Xbox version, that one stinks, is a recommended look for the casual, and I would say a must-buy for the hardcore collector of the PS2 and of anything Final Fight in general. You definitely are gonna want this game, and if you're looking at getting this title, it's gonna be a little bit more pricier than other games. It'll be between $30 and $40. Granted, I bought this game many years ago before the price went up, so I got it a lot cheaper, but I'm looking at prices right now, and you're looking at $30 to $40 depending on its condition. And so with that, we close the book on another anniversary 2-bit review. And like I do every year, I want to thank each and every one of you, people who've been with me since the beginning, the middle, and even just recently have started watching the channel. Thank you guys. I just do this as a hobby, so your feedback and all of that stuff, like the commenting, the liking, all of that is awesome, and thank you. And it's part of the reason why I continue to make content. I probably would have given up a long time ago if no one was watching anything. When I really think about it, but then again, sometimes I'm kind of egotistical, so I think I would still be doing it even if no one watched it. But yeah, you guys do kind of give me that little push that I need sometimes. And of course, everyone who's ever collaborated with me or encouraged me on a retro tip, StatXJ, Video Game Book Club, I go through this every year with you guys. Thank you. You guys are awesome. And with that being said, unfortunately, my term as Chief Chronicler of the MFers is coming to a close. It's kind of like the president, you know, you get 2 terms, 4-year terms, and I've reached my 8 years. That doesn't mean 2-Bit Jesus is going anywhere, but being the Chief Chronicler, my journey has come to an end just about. I still got a few more reviews left in me, don't worry. And so, with all of that being said, again, thank you to every single one of you. Stay safe and play on.